Good morning. Welcome to the Executive Prayer Line. Today is April 18th, 2020. The title of the message today is Your Blessings Are Already Locked and Loaded. And I wanted to give you an example of there's sometimes you take a test. I don't know if you guys have ever taken a test where the test says read the whole test, read the whole paragraph before you start answering the questions. They used to do this in elementary school, and then you would see kids pulling out their pencil and just starting to answer the questions. The first instruction was read the whole thing before you start answering the questions. Then when you got to the end of the test, it would say, you don't have to take the test. Just write down whatever, and you don't have, whatever they would tell you to do. But if you go all the way to the end, it relieves you of the labor, all the stuff that's in the middle, following the directions. And so in these two scenarios, the two scriptures that are at the end that Gloria and Vivian are going to read, there's two scenarios that God is talking to Moses about. And this especially in high pressure, high volume, high projects that matter, which is pretty much everything God gives you to do matters. And another thing, sometimes very big situations are weighted upon simple actions that we have to take. Very, very big shifts in our life are weighted by simple actions we have to take. And we look in our eyes and say, I don't see how this will equate to that. But in the spirit realm, simple obedience equates to very big outcomes. And you write that down. In the spirit realm, simple obedience equates to very big outcomes. There was a situation where a king was wanting to be healed, and the prophet, I think it was the prophet, told him to go dip in the river 7 times, and the king got mad because it wasn't a complicated solution. And the servant, who had common sense, said, if he had asked you something hard to do, you would have done it, but he asked you something simple, and now you're stuck because it's too simple. Big blessings are hidden behind simple acts of obedience. I know you guys know what I'm saying. Big blessings are hidden behind simple acts of obedience. One of the acts of obedience is finish what I gave you already to do. Are you asking God for the second set of instructions or second conversation? You haven't finished what he told you to do on the first set of instructions. Simple things like that. That's all under the category of excellence. And our blessings get all clogged up because we picking and choosing what part of what he told us to do we want to do and not finishing the other parts. So you have all these little started projects and nothing's finished. And then you wonder why he didn't give you something new, because he didn't finish the last 5 things he gave you to do. Don't worry, I'm preaching to myself too, but you have to finish in simplicity and excellence. So one of the things in Exodus, he's saying, he asked Moses, what do you have in your hand? See, Moses was sitting there having a conversation with God, and God had already given him the solution, one of the tools that cooperated with the solution, but Moses didn't know because God had to point it out to him. He said, Moses, what do you have in your hand? And then the second time when they were standing in front of the Red Sea, again, Moses, lift up the rod I already gave you. You're holding that rod with my word, the faith, and what I told you to do will get you across this Red Sea. But I already gave you this. You holding part of the solution. And so, again, if we finish what he gave us, sometimes we are building the tools that are going to get us across the bridge. Sometimes we are building on one side of the river. You're building in the simple things he gave you to do. You're already building the solution, but we look in, what about this, and what is this one doing, and what is that one doing? And God's like, you do your homework, what I gave you to do, and what I'm having you do will not only finish that project, but it'll be the piece needed to go into the next piece. You're building something, and then the thing you're building, you don't know what it looks like, what it is, but then you take it and add it with what he's getting ready to do, and it all neatly fits together. All things work together for the good to them that are called according to them that love God and are called according to his spirit. He has your process, and your steps is part of an equation that is going to teach you some lessons, release some things that need to be released, bring you into an enlightenment. It's all a personal study. You may be standing right next to somebody going through the same thing, and God will tell you a different kind of miracle than he tells the other person. That's why you can't copy off nobody's homework, because what he tells you to do is not what he told the one to the left or to the right to do. Everybody has their own agenda. This is a big, giant classroom, and we are learning things. And one other point I want to make, sometimes, especially with older people or these long-term family arguments, people get committed to a fight. Let me tell, and so this sometimes you have to know what you're dealing with, and you might have to say it to them, or you might have to say it to yourself. When I say get committed to a fight, you pick a fight. You could have, when I say pick, you could have gotten into conflict with somebody a long time ago, but you done told everybody. You went. I'm not saying anybody on the line, but pay attention to this when you're looking in your. It happens with older people more so. Younger people don't commit. They're not old enough to have invested in being mad. But when I say you invested in being mad, you have because to come out of it, you have to admit some things. And sometimes it's easier to stay mad than to admit that you was wrong. So you stay angry or stay, Jesus. Okay, I was just talking about something, and I had somebody in mind, and there was an advertisement. This is God is amazing. There's an advertisement that popped up on my screen, and the person's name that I was thinking about when I was talking about this just pops up on the screen. So, see, God talks. Honestly, you guys don't realize that He will. That name just popped up on my screen. I was like, oh my goodness. Anyway, yes, that's exactly who I'm talking about. But you can get committed, and so to being angry. Now, how do you get committed to being angry? When somebody offends you, you get on the phone and talk about them. You get a whole little team in agreement with why you don't like this person and what wrong they did to you, and da 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 da. So that builds up a way you can't even forgive them without explaining yourself to all the little entourages you just ran your mouth and told about the person. So you start committing to this wrong pathway. You start building up an allegiance. You start spending time, and then if it goes on for years, and this is your pattern of behavior, becomes a very bad thing to do. Where you're just going to get mad and just kick rocks and be mad at the other person and act a fool, and then you done acted you done spoke about them so bad or talked about it so bad, drug them in the ground so bad. Now when the forgiveness comes, which is what you're supposed to do, walk back across that bridge and apologize, humble yourself, and all of that, you have committed. And so by being committed, you can't commit to it. You committed, you invested in the anger, invested your reputation. Oh, I'm not going to let him talk to me like that. I'm a da 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 da. You better stop. You better stop it. And whatever God says, how you're supposed to behave, because you'll be sitting up in church shouting with that anger in the back of your mind, in the back of your pocket, and you can come out of praising God to curse somebody out. And I'm not talking to anybody on the prayer line, but I'm just saying, you know what that looks like. You've seen people do it. That's not God, and that will stop you from having a blessing, because you're sitting up there letting the devil have a space in your life and in your spirit. You done made a little space so you can shout all around it to the left and shout all around it to the right, but you just don't go right down the middle and break that hard ground, stony ground up and deal with it. That will keep you stuck in a loop, because you will not get past it. God does not advance you to the next grade, to the next realm, to the next dimension where you got all that junk going on. That's why you can't have it in your spirit. You can't play with it. And people, when I say commit to anger, you invest in it. Put earrings on it, put a necklace on it, dress it up, put a hat on it. You be wearing hate like it's fine jewelry, and be okay with it. It's not. That's what you see when you see people go to church or come out and go to a lynching. That's what that is. That's hatred all dressed up like it's something to do. And it's not God. So you can't invest in it, and you get traditions invested in it. You get social events invested in it. You get anger invested in it, and you just cannot spend time sewing up something, creating something that's going to hurt another human being. That's your hands. That's a curse. So even in the small things, holding an angst against somebody, you invest it. You invest money in the bank, you invested effort and conversation into being angry about somebody. Release that, and that is a sin before God. Release it. It ain't cute. They could have did you wrong. I'm not saying they didn't or did or didn't, but you can't hold it. You can't invest in it. And if you want to get blessed, you can't hold it in your spirit. And older people are real good at staying mad, at staying angry with each other. And they'll still be in church. In some kind of way, they worked it out in their brain that I can hate this person and be angry because they did this, this, and this. And then, but you still stand up there talking to God, and then that stuff is sitting in your life, and it's just sitting up on the shelf, like with dusting it off and talking to it. Let it, pull it down and break it. Let it go. That it will keep you stuck, and you'll be never go to the next level because you never got rid of it. So invested is, and this is another thing about investing in it. It requires you to come off of your it requires a breakdown of that part of the reputation. It requires a breakdown of having been angry so long. Sometimes you can be angry with somebody for so long that it will, you just can't, you don't know how to function any other way. You don't know how to function and not be, you don't know how to come across the bridge of peace and be okay with it, to forgive and to love the person no matter what, to be able to do that. And so because it's been years and you've been set up with it that long, you are willing to, and you just don't know how to apologize in this, pride. I know I should, but I don't know how to. These are grown. These not little kids don't do this. This is older people do this. Stuck in their way people do it. Stubborn people, rebellion, stubbornness does it. And if you ever have it in your mind, any kind of way, you're saying that's good enough, smash that phrase out of your spirit. That's good enough is not part of what you live with ever, ever. And the other part is, you know how I am. Write that down. You know how I am. I'm just like that. Right? If you write all that, that's a slap. That's right there. You know how I am. I always do it like that. That's just how I roll. All that little excuse for being ignorant, let it go, because you need to go to a better place. So don't allow people, and you on your prayer list, and you see people with that. No, don't allow it. That's not good. I was having a conversation with my mom a long time ago, and she said, well, you know how I am. And I said, that's just because you've always done it that way is not an excuse to keep doing it that way. It's not an excuse. You know how I am is not okay. And we talk about relatives, older relatives especially. Bind that's a demonic, don't hold it. Because you know what? If Jesus had to use any of that comfort level conversation and he would have never went to Calvary and we'd all be going to hell. He got real uncomfortable so that we could get real saved. And if he was willing to get real uncomfortable for us to get real saved, then you equate that to the you know how I am, because you know how I am is not going to fit into the kingdom. It won't be, there will be none of that. So write that and pay attention to it, because that's when I talk about being invested in a certain kind of behavior. It's an excuse, and it will not fly. God will not allow it, and you're definitely not going into the upper realms of anything with that being a part of the process. So we're going to go ahead and talk about, we're going to read the scriptures that we had. Now, the scriptures on excellence, and the title of the message is Your Blessings Are Already Locked and Loaded. That we are sitting, sometimes your activity, that the homework and when I say homework, you have spiritual homework as well. The homework that you have sitting in front of you is the answer is right there. It's hidden there. It's hidden when you mix this with that, stir it up. You mix this with that, and you mix this with that. You do all your stuff, and then you bring it together, and you will see the answer was sitting in front of you in the midst of your environment already. So pay attention what did God already tell you to do? Because don't ask for the new stuff if you haven't completed what he already told you to do. And if it's something that you abandoned long time ago, bring it before him and say, and repent for it. Bring it before him and say, this is how you catch up. Be present in the current day blessing. Come back and say, Father, what do I need to do about this? What do I need to do about that? How do I handle this? And then don't put something on top of it and pretend like it's not there. I was supposed to apologize. Oh, I didn't. Okay, well, it's been years. Okay. Nope. No. You take your nakedness to God and say, what do I do with this? Because I really want to make sure all of me is present with God, and I'm not pretending. If you've ever had had a puppy or a junior dog, a very young dog, you come home or something, and they looking all guilty, and you don't even know they did nothing yet, but they give themselves away because they're sitting there looking like eyes are all low, head is all down to the ground, and you hit the corner and they done tore up a pillow, or tore up some shoes, or tore something up, and they know they did it, but you don't know they did it, and sometimes I had a dog shoot the heel. I don't know how they pick the good shoes. I don't know how they know which your favorite shoes, but pick the shoes and just chewed on it. There's no way to fix it. It was because he literally chewed on it like it was just gnawed away at the shoes. I didn't know it was deep in the closet. I didn't know she had done it, and so but then looking and paying attention because she gave herself away. So we go to the presence of God and we're talking all around, really praising Him on the stuff you want to praise Him on, and then just pretending like you don't even see what He's telling you. Just like He's telling you to do something over here to the left, and you praising all the way over here to the right because you don't want to see what He done told you to do over here, and you pretending like your Father did not tell you something, like He's not working with you on something. That all plays together. You're not going to that next realm of blessing till you do what He told you to do here. Do you let go what He told you to let go of here? Do you complete what He told you to complete with excellence here? It might be making peace with family members. It might be something as simple as cleaning up. It might be something as simple as putting something in order. Because in the midst, God is not an author of confusion. So He's very orderly. And He will tell you some stuff you may need to let go of, and some stuff you may need to start doing. But your blessings are right in the midst of your obedience, right there, right in front of you. Something because I assure you, if you do with excellence all He told you to do, timely and efficiently, like He told you to do it, it will release to the next level. That lock and load, it's an automatic thing. You won't have to go searching for it. It'll just come right back. It'll be boom, it's right there. It's in the supernatural. It's right there. It's already ready to go. Already been here. It's blessings been sitting there for years. But because you didn't do what He told you to do, operating in good enough, and that's just how I am, and I don't need these extra pieces. That's not necessary. That lackadaisical spirit will keep you out of heaven. And when I say heaven, I don't mean to keep you out of heaven literally. I mean keep you out of the blessing and what God has for you to do on the next thing. It'll keep you out of that next realm because you didn't operate in it. We have to know in all ways, in every possible way, operate in excellence. Ask the questions. How can I improve this? How can I make it better? Let me work diligently on getting it done. That's why I told you yesterday or the day before, we said pray, eat, sleep, and exercise. Pray, eat, sleep, and exercise. Those are the components for rejuvenating your spirit and your mind and being prepared. Sometimes you gotta rest a minute before you go in and start tackling the thing that you have ignored, before that place where you done shoved everything under the rug, or that room in your spirit where you just pushed everything aside and just stuck it in the door and closed it, never dealt with it. That's the door you got to open up. Because if you can't process forgiveness, process release, stop trying to be a people pleaser, worrying about if everybody likes you or not. If you have any of that in your spirit, that's got to come out, because you cannot serve man and people. If God can tell you something, and your friends or your associates or whoever you hang out with can tell you something different, and you're trying to balance between what they said and what God told you, you might be the only one He tells. And they may say, girls, I didn't feel. Well, He didn't tell you. That's why you didn't feel it. And you need to be. He didn't tell it to you. He said it to me. What did He tell you to do? And you worried about trying to fit in still. Self-esteem issues. All that gets stuck up in a room, and it starts becoming part of your operating system. You got to clean all that out. Open that door in your spirit, pull all that stuff out, and it's what it is a result of experiences and how you have responded to stuff. It's got you stuck because you're still worried about, is Aunt Jane gonna think this is good enough. She gonna say that. They may talk about you. Why do you care? Why do you care? Clean your closet out. Clean the stuff out that God gave you to do, and with the things that He has already told you to do. Pull that stuff out and finish it. In that midst of starting to function and completion, because this is what people do though, and everybody does it to you. Through discipline, learn to not do it. You will start something till you get to the hard part, and then you abandon that and go to the next thing. When everybody's looking at it and everybody's running towards you, trying to get to the front of the line, go, ooh, me, consider me. That's not what that's about. You want to tell how long you did this, and who cares? What you do with God is done in secret. That's not what that's about. It's about, because it's for the perfecting of your own spirit. It's not for to tell everybody else that you did something. When you do something just as a practice, when you give something unto the Lord, do something to the Lord. If you tell everybody what you did, that's your reward. If you keep it a secret, do it in secret, God will reward you openly. And people won't know why you're busting out with blessings, but see, they don't know how much time you spend on your face before Him quietly. They don't know what you're doing under the hood. They don't know what you're doing in your prayer closet. That's how you get blessed. You go and do your hardest work in the presence of God, the working on your own spirit by yourself. You don't need to, don't be announcing, don't be talking about what you, because that's your, if you just want people to clap in their spiritual clap in their minds, oh, she's really spiritual, you got it. That's your reward. But if you want the real elevation, keep your mouth shut when you talk to people about what you did, and let that be between you and God. Do that in secret. And then don't tell nobody that you fasting and praying and all that. Don't tell nobody that you're giving and doing all that. Don't tell nobody how you turn the other cheek. Keep it to yourself, because guess what? Heaven sees every single thing. When you are functioning in this earth realm, God, you are on a big screen, someplace in the presence of God. He will see you. He is hearing you. He is doing everything that He has told you to do. They see everything. And if you are strong enough to do these great works quietly and secretly, don't tell people what you do. That is between you and God. You function like nothing's going on. You don't tell people you just gave $1 million to somebody. You don't go say, I'm announcing it, because he just killed them. I've seen that in church. People have given big amounts of money, and the pastor has stood up and announced it. And what he did was rob that person of the blessing, because you're supposed to do it in secret and let God reward you openly. You don't announce and that's giving money, praying, fasting, whatever it is. Whatever you do for God, do it in secret and keep it hidden, and let God reward you openly. That's just, I don't know who that's for, but that's just, that was power. Don't tell the blessing, because the enemy will take that and turn it into some kind of competitive pride in the spirit. And the next person, well, I did this. Well, I did. Who cares? That's not for the public. That's your private conversation with God. He's growing you in humility. Jesus, he could have, when they came to get him, he could have knocked everybody down, and they would have, the legions of angels would have come and immediately rescued him. But he did not. He did not speak from the godness in him while he was on that cross. He kept it down. He had to fight his own supernatural ability to stay up on that cross. He didn't have to do that. He submitted to doing it. Same likewise for us. Submit to doing what God has told you to do. Last thing is, this is growth. This is how we get from one level to people pleasing. You have to, don't people please. And it's good to serve different ones, but do not be a people pleaser, because God might call you to do something, and here you are, oh, well, I got to make sure of this, I got to make sure of that. You're not serving man, you're serving God. You have to serve God through excellence. And when he sees you, he'll say, come from the back of the church over here. Come from the back of whatever you're doing, humbly doing whatever your God has put your hands to do. He will elevate you. But don't try to make sure, I don't even know how to describe a people pleaser, but that means you're doing something like, oh, look what I did. Look what I'm doing for you. Look, stop it. That's not God. You're serving man. Serving God, He will tell you what. Sometimes they'll be in agreement. Sometimes they won't. You always check your first point of connection is the presence of God, and you're a blessing, and you're being a blessing. But being a blessing and being a people pleaser is you need somebody to pat you on the head and say you did a good job. Don't get stuck off in that, because you'll be people pleasing and miss God calling you out. Because one day when He calls you up, when He called Abraham up and out, he had to leave his father. He wasn't people pleasing, he was God listening. And see, you have to be trained yourself, hear from God, and realize that you and God are enough. And when He tells you to do something, you step on out there and do it with excellence, and put in trust in the Lord, not the club, not club church, not getting pat on the head, not needing to that, because what'll happen is it's easy to get. That's how the Pharisees. That's how they got that. That's how they got Jesus to the cross. They were amongst themselves, not wanting to lose power, and couldn't recognize who He was, because they had long since left the Word, had created a condition of convenience on themselves. The enemy don't care about you going to church. He don't care about the hat and the shoes and the fan, and he don't care that you can sing. He don't care that you're shouting all in front of the altar. He don't care that you're walking down there, putting, you know how they walk down there and put the dollars on the altar. He don't care about all that. He cares that if you hear God say, "Go stand up and walk to the right, walk to the left," that you actually do it. And if God tells you to stand up and walk, stand up and do, stand up and give, stand up and speak, stand up. And I'm not saying speak out of order in the congregation, but He tells you to speak truth to power. Whatever He tells you to do, and it's not a show off thing. Most of the time, it's very quiet, very much in the presence of God. If you can hear God and have the completeness and the sense of excellence in your spirit, that a human being has not entered into that conversation, into that equation, is you and the Almighty by yourself. You confirm that word. That's when you start being in the prophetic, because you're hearing from God and you're not telling nobody till it lands on the ears it's supposed to land on. He can trust you with the word of truth. He can trust you because you ain't got to open up. People pleasing is dangerous. It means something you need to feel good enough. Then you need to get healed from that. Don't be needy and be serving God. Serve God as completion. If God says you're good enough, you are. And nobody may be backing you on what God tells you to do. You might be sitting by yourself. And some people can't even go to church. God has them off by themselves in the Word, because He's talking to them, because they too apt to be, I want to make sure the pastor sees me. I want to make sure this. I want to make sure. You better listen to God. You better get in front of Him. And they'll recognize you, because God will be shining down on you. God will be talking to you. Don't try to don't do that. Stay in the presence of God. Excellence is not unto man, it's unto God. And in the process of being excellent before God and doing it according to His will, you will accomplish the things that man wants you to do as well. But it's God. It's put God first. Hear His voice, because when He calls you, He's not going to call you into man-pleasing activity. He usually calls you into that sharp edge, that cutting word, into excellence. And most of the time, you see your prophets are not friendly. And I say that because by the time they finish telling you the truth, you ain't going to like them. They know that already when they start out. So listen to God. Don't be needy. Don't be needing to hear from man. Don't be needing. It doesn't matter how much you love a person or not. God is your first love always. The Spirit of the Lord, your first love. Okay, I don't know who that was. Who I was talking to there. Your blessings are locked and loaded. We're getting ready to read these scriptures, and this is a spirit of excellence. It is necessary to get to the next realm. You will be consecrated before God. It will be times you won't speak to a whole bunch of people, because you'll be talking to the Lord. You will not share what He tells you until He releases you to share it. He'll show you some things, and you're not going to share that till He releases you to share it. Everybody knows you can hear from God. That don't mean you say what He told you till He releases you to say it.